Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Brazen Insights with Asia. Now, like I said, Happy Go Lucky is not here right now. We're sticking with Brazen. I think it's best suited for me at this stage, um, in this whole podcasting career of mine, if you can call it that. Today's episode is pretty much going to be about the Kamala Harris interview on CNN and my takeaways from it, and how she epically failed yet again on a softball interview that was pre-recorded, which I kind of knew was going to happen. I mean, once they said countdown, I'm like, this is going to be pre-recorded. And I'm not going to lie, before I start showing you clips, I have to say I have to give Dana Bash not a whole lot of credit, right? I mean, I can't give her too much credit. She's not the toughest interviewer for Democrats. I mean, she just isn't. She has a bias. She doesn't like Donald Trump. She's part of the cabal, but she tried to give off this illusion of asking tough questions, maybe because they needed to show that Kamala can handle it. And that's what I believe personally. I don't think that they would have allowed Dana to ask any of those questions if Kamala wasn't in so much trouble with not doing any interviews since she's been selected as the Democrat nominee. And so they're just trying to give this illusion that Kamala can take the heat. But it was an epic fail from the jump because she couldn't do it alone. That's number one. And number two, even though it was pre-recorded, and I'm pretty sure, I believe that they gave her the questions beforehand. So she should have been more prepared to answer these questions. Now, she didn't have word salads as much as we've seen her in her rallies and all of these things that we've seen over the past couple of years, where she pretty much replicates Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Veep. I mean, she is that bad in public speaking, Kamala. But this was softball. Like, in my opinion, she was given those questions ahead of time. And so she should have been able to answer these questions. And the answers that we were getting were, she was pretty much talking around in circles, dodging left and right. And again, they're trying to give the illusion that she can handle these questions, and she can't, because it was an epic fail. Not to mention, Tampon next to her, he was looking at her to see if it was okay for him to say what he's about to say, because really he doesn't even know what her position is, right? She doesn't have a real position. She's a flip-flopper. She says what she has to get ahead. So that's what I think. But I am going to show you guys some clips on this because I want to show you different parts of the interview that was pissing me off. Now, the episode yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the crisis at the border and the increase in illegal immigration. I know I got a lot of people upset about that, but I did say at the top of the episode that it would come off pretty racist and prejudiced, and I didn't care, that I wasn't proud of my prejudice. And I stand by what I said. A lot of the problems that we're facing as it relates to immigration, Kamala Harris is confronted on this issue. Confronted, right? I put that in air quotes because personally, I do believe that she was given these questions ahead of time. She should have been able to answer these, and she couldn't. And so that's really the first one that I want to show you all, where she does talk about illegal immigration. She is confronted with the fact that she's been in office for almost 4 years, and the White House has pretty much not done a damn thing to help. And they do talk about the root causes thing, but I won't talk so much. I do want to show you all that clip. Luckily, CNN broke up the interview into like 3, maybe 4 parts. I think the interview really only lasted 18 minutes, which was like, woman, you were selected a long time ago, like in June, after that terrible debate with Biden. You've been selected since then, and you haven't done a sit-down interview since then. And those little moments where she does talk with the press for those brief seconds, word salads. Everything else has been a campaign event. Everything else has been a campaign event. And none of those have been broadcasted legitimately, if you ask me, because she keeps saying that she has thousands and thousands of people. Now, I'll give you the one in Atlanta. She did have Megan Thee Stallion. But there's been a couple. I think that one in Pennsylvania, she only had a couple of hundred people. I mean, if you can hear a cell phone ring in the room, come on. Come on. She hasn't been confronted by any one of them, like at all, by anybody in the news media. I understand why she's not going to go to Fox News. She didn't trust them, right? I do believe Fox is a part of the cabal, but they're still conservative to some degree. She's not going to go there. You could have gone to MSNBC, ABC, NBC. They could have thrown softballs at you the way that they did Biden. I mean, Biden was pretty much hiding, right? He didn't have that many campaign rallies, but there was no countdown to interviews. He gave them. Not a lot, but he gave more interviews than she's giving. And this is the guy with dementia. How is the guy whose brain is falling apart doing more interviews than the so-called younger candidate? That doesn't make sense. And now we get this one interview for 18 minutes. Come on. But this was the part that I wanted to talk about because, like I said, yesterday's episode was about immigration. It pissed me off. And I went ham on that one. I'm not even gonna lie, folks. Immigration, illegal immigration. I mean, legal immigration too is bothering me, but illegal immigration for the most part is the one that bothers me the most. And I have to say, her take on it, I mean, I'm not surprised, right? I'm so not surprised when it comes to Kamala Harris' take on illegal immigration, but she doesn't really answer the question. She dodges. So I want you all to see for yourselves that she's full of stucco. 100% full of it. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you all can see this clearly.
Another issue, big one, is immigration. As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers.
That little thing right there is what I have to give Dana credit for, right? She said the Biden-Harris administration, not giving her the opportunity to distance herself from it. But again, this is pre-recorded. She was probably given the questions ahead of time. Kamala should have been able to say something. But I did appreciate that Dana did say the Biden-Harris administration. That I was happy about.
Numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
3.
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region.
Okay, what does that mean? What? I got to rewind because that confused me.
Work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I.
So before I continue this, let's be clear. That root causes nonsense. What is she talking about? Was there ever a report for that? I really hope if there was and you guys know about it, please put it in the comment section. Put a link to the report because I take the time to read it. I mean, I took the time to read the Mueller report. I took the time to read a lot of the Supreme Court decisions. I take the time. So if it exists, please put it in the comment section, folks. But as far as I'm concerned, she's saying that the information from the root causes helped American investment. How so? How is finding out why the criminals are coming here to begin with help American businesses? Finding out the root causes definitely didn't help out Aurora, Colorado. It definitely didn't help those 2 cops who were shot point blank in New York. It definitely doesn't help the victims of crime, of illegal immigrant crime in Central Park. It definitely doesn't help that Black woman who sold her business to an illegal alien who was funded by our government. It doesn't help the American citizen who wants to be a homeowner, because all the money is going to the illegal to buy a house. So how did the root causes help Americans? How did it provide investment into American businesses when illegal aliens are either taking the businesses, robbing the businesses, taking turf, pushing people out of their homes? What the heck is she talking about? She's full of stocko.
I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue
go.
that is
Blame
very
game.
significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure, and
Let's call a spade on that. Okay, before I even call the spade, let's take her at her word. Let's say, okay, Trump came in 3.5 years later into the Biden-Harris administration and killed the bill. Okay, but why didn't you do this day one of the administration? Why is it that when you rolled back some of the policies on the border and realized it was failing, because the first year of Biden-Harris rolling back those policies, there was a floodgate of illegals, a floodgate, and they did absolutely nothing about it. Nothing. You could have done something then. Oh no, it was hurting him politically. You mean the bill where they would have been spending millions and billions more while you're still tying the hands of the Border Patrol? Let's call a spade. The Biden-Harris administration pretty much turned the Border Patrol into human traffickers, because all they do is when they come across the border, you send them off to someone who comes and claims them as their relative. They claim to be the guardians of these children. That's what they do. That's what they're doing. You turn the Border Patrol into, they pretty much become complicit in human trafficking under the Biden-Harris administration, because they can't do anything. They're under the federal authority. If they're told to let them go, they're going to let them go. That's just the reality of it, folks. So she's sitting here blaming Donald Trump for, oh, he killed the bill. But Biden is the president. Harris is the vice president. You were made the border czar. She could have easily told Border Patrol, if they put one toe over the line, open fire. Make an example, because then they won't do it again. It's just like with children. If I see my older sibling get their ass whooped because they disobeyed a direct order from our parents, then I know not to do that. So if they saw some kind of force, it would have deterred further illegal immigration. She was the border czar. She could have easily done that. She could have.
And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl.
Notice how she's not answering the question.
Community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl, what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about,
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
You know, folks, like, one of the things that bother me for the most part when it comes to this is that she's full of it. She's so full of it. She's bothering me. She is the only one who's ever prosecuted anyone. I was at the border. I lived in a border state. I did prosecute criminals who were coming into the country. But you didn't do anything as vice president. In 2019, you said you wanted to decriminalize the border so that they could pretty much do whatever the hell they wanted. But when Donald Trump was in there, if you came across that border illegally, you were charged with a crime. As they should be. As they should be. If it's a crime when you cross the border, they're arrested and deported right away. We're going to wait for them to get further into the nation, for them to go on and commit other crimes like what we saw in Aurora, Colorado, as discussed in last night's episode. Come on. That's where we're at right now, Kamala. Okay, so let's just assume that Kamala is the perfect person for the job, right? Let's say she gets in there. What is she going to do day one? That's the next clip that I want to show you, ladies and gentlemen, because to be honest with you, I don't think she's not going to do great in day one. She isn't. Personally, I don't think she's winning. The only way she's winning is if she cheats. That's personally what I think, but I do want to show you guys what she said, what she would be doing day one. She's so full of it. Let's just go ahead and let's let's go on and show this one off, because gosh.
To make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class.
What does that mean?
When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade.
Okay, you see how she's not answering the question again? Like, here we go again. You're not answering the question. Oh, they were inspired by hope in previous generations. And she's going to go on to talk about how, well, for the last 10 years, we've been dealing with, this guy, Donald Trump, and he's yada, yada, and so forth. And I hate to say that there are people that believe that, but I have good friends who are so caught up in Trump derangement syndrome that they can't see past the fact that she is a woman of color. They believe the nonsense that she's saying. But when asked point blank, what are the policies you're going to do day one? All she can say is, we want to support the middle class. Or we want to make sure people have, that sounds like Obama, hope and change. Hope and change. That's what she sounds like, but not providing any substance to her answer. What are you going to do? I got to get past this. We
have had in the really dividing our nation.
You Democrats.
I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard.
Let's rewind so you can hear this.
Really divide. Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard.
Yeah, giving illegals money to buy houses and businesses.
The cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest
printing more dollars.
Families, for example, extending the child tax credit.
You mean the children that you Democrats don't murder
for families
abortion
for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy.
If a child isn't killed in abortion, if they even make it to the first year of their life, because you're pretty much pushing abortions on the taxpayer.
Clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things
that you caused.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this
Here he
agenda
is,
too.
looking
As
at
I
her.
said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be, and I think many of these things that the vice president's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did it in Minnesota to have a federal partner in this.
Minnesota, you mean the same
unbelievable, I think,
Minnesota
in
that
the
pretty much
impact
got
that we can
destroyed
make.
during the BLM
You talked
riots?
about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is, we're not going back. But I wonder what
Yes.
you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically.
Thank you. And this is another moment where I got to give Dana credit. Now, like I said, I do believe that these were softball questions and that not softball entirely, but I do think Kamala was prepped for this ahead of time. I do think she was told that these would be the questions that they were going to ask her, so that way she can prepare herself to handle these questions. And so here it is, one of the biggest questions next to immigration, the economy, and you know, even though people didn't like Donald Trump, they have to admit the economy was better under him. It just was.
Because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of the pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost.
Because you chose
People,
to shut down.
I mean, literally,
Liberal
we were
states chose
all
to shut
tracking
down.
the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID.
A lie.
The economy had crashed. In large part, all of
Because
that
you kept
because
printing
of
money.
mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America.
To keep printing money. I love how they say he mismanaged the COVID shutdowns when he pretty much respected the federalist system and told the states, do whatever you think is best. And these radical states decided to shut down entirely. And not even just radical states, right? Because there were some states with Republican governors who chose to shut down even for 2 weeks. Kristi Noem was the only governor in the entire nation who stayed open from the beginning. Excuse me. She was the only leader in all of the Western world to stay open, period. The only one. And so now she's saying that Trump mishandled it. Oh, well, he mismanaged it because he shut down the states. No, the governors did. Oh, well, he added all of this money into the economy. Well, yes, he did. But then you and Biden get in there and you do exactly the same thing. And then you up the ante by trying to mandate vaccines. No black folk was down for being Tuskegee'd. And then when states were ready to open up, you wanted to encourage they stay closed. That's what you did. Harris, Biden, that's what you chose to do when you took office. I mean, you dragged out the shutdowns longer than they needed to. Way longer than they needed to. And the very thing you're criticizing Donald Trump for, as far as adding more debt to the deficit, you came in and you started printing way more than he did, way more than he added. So you can't blame him for the management of COVID. I mean, not entirely, because I have my issues with him also on COVID shutdowns. But you can't put it all on him when Biden Harris came in at the tail end of the pandemic and tried to mandate all this stuff and printed a crap ton of money. And then the jobs got worse under them.
3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right.
But it's still broke.
Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it. I know it.
It's your fault.
Which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries.
So what
for
is that
example,
plan?
dealing with an issue like price gouging. What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children
this
in their most
circling
formative
back,
years.
repeating herself?
What we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is.
And I'm done with this because we know that money is going to illegals. It's not going to go to American citizens. It isn't. It's going to go to the illegals. Just pretty much everything we saw coming out of Oregon is what she's proposing. It's not going to we, the American public. And this price gouging, this is communist. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. America will find itself collapsing, and it'll it'll just be a body of land, and we won't be the United States of America anymore. We'll be independent states who are trying to thrive in the mess that Harris and Biden have created. And if she's elected president, because she only wins if they steal it. If she takes that White House, America is gone. And I know people say, oh, well, for decades, we've been saying it's the most important election ever. Yeah, I know that could be hyperbole, and they exaggerate a lot, our politicians. But I don't think never in a generation, no American in the history of this country had to worry about losing America the next day or the next round of elections. Not this much, not this way. Biden totally sped up everything that Obama did, because Obama was slowly destroying America. Death by 1,000 cuts was Obama's take, or his approach to destroying the United States of America, its sovereignty, its wealth, its people. Death by 1,000 cuts was under Obama. Biden, Harris, no, they went and slit the throat, and the aorta is hemorrhaging. That's where we are. America she's dying. And if she wins, America is 6 feet under. Completely 6 feet under. This interview was supposed to show Kamala Harris, she's supposed to show us something, right? Show us that she can handle the tough questions, that she has an idea. She has ideas that can deal with the crisis as it relates to inflation, cost of living going up, illegal immigration and legal immigration, the problems with China investing in agriculture in our nation. I mean, there's a lot of problems. And this interview, first of all, only being 18 minutes, there were major issues that she never got to. She never really got to the subject of China. Everybody wants to talk about the Israel-Hamas war, and she does talk about that too, and her dedication to making sure Israel can protect itself. But she totally went against AOC, because AOC wants a free Palestine. I mean, it's a bunch of flip-flopping and no plan, just talking out of her backside. And Walt Tampon over there, just keep looking at her to make sure he's saying the right thing. This interview was ridiculous. And though I can give Dana credit for 2 of the questions that were asked, I'm like, I can't even say that she gets a lot of credit and a lot of kudos, because I'm pretty sure Kamala got her hands on these questions ahead of time and she still failed. That's my take on it. Personally, this interview did nothing except strengthen my resolve. I don't like Kamala. And to you Democrats, I'm telling you right now, if she wins, you will continue to suffer. You are the Borg. And we keep trying to liberate you. We conservatives are Captain Janeway of Star Trek. That's who we are. And you all, we're hoping, are the 7 of 9s. We want to liberate you from this collective, because it's dangerous to you and to us. But you have to take the first step. You have to want to know better, to be better as an individual, and eventually as a part of a collective of individuals, because the individuality of Americans is what's going to help move it forward, because we can think differently. We don't have to always agree. But the one thing that we should have in common is the shared interest of America thriving. And if you think Kamala is the way forward, you're still in the Borg. You're still in the Borg. And Kamala, Borg queen. I can't even say that. She doesn't even come off like she has the stuff to be the Borg queen, but that's neither here nor there. That's my take on this interview, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me what you think about Kamala Harris interview at CNN. Do you agree with me? Do you think this was pretty much a softball interview? Do you think Kamala pretty much just showed us more of who she is, someone who can't handle tough questions, talks out of her backside, can't really provide answers to what she's going to do? If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. I do like to reply to those comments, and I do talk about those comments on later episodes. So let me know what you think. Make sure you like and subscribe, follow and share this podcast if you enjoy it. Even if you don't, I can take the heat if you don't like it. God bless you all, and have a wonderful rest of your evening, and have a great holiday weekend. Enjoy. Good night.